Hare Krishna. Let us understand Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter, section by section. To begin with, let us offer our prayers to our spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and to the Supreme Lord. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today, let us understand the summary study of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, section 5. Those who have not seen the previous sections, I request you to go through the previous sections. In the previous section, that is section 4, Lord Krishna had described Buddhi Yoga. This is a very, very important topic. So, after describing Buddhi Yoga, Arjuna asks questions about a person situated in Buddhi Yoga. So we will be understanding that in this section. This section is entitled Symptoms of a Person Situated in Transcendence, Shloka number 54 to 72. So in this section, Arjuna asks questions to Lord Krishna and Lord Krishna replies. Arjuna Vacha Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna said, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? Here Arjuna, he wanted to know the symptoms of a person who is practicing Buddhi Yoga. In the previous section, Krishna had described elaborately about Buddhi Yoga, how one has to give up all the fruitive results and work only for the pleasure of the Supreme. So Arjuna wanted to know what are the symptoms of a person who is thus merged in transcendence. So for this, Lord Krishna replies, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadochate. The blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So this is the reply Lord Krishna gave to Arjuna's question. So very important point Krishna has mentioned here. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogata. One who gives up all varieties of sense desires. Sarvan kaman manogatan. All the desires arise in the mind. So Krishna is telling, one who gives up all varieties of sense desires which arise from the mind. Actually, real desire is the desire of the soul. But in our conditioned life, the desires which generate in us is actually not the pure desires of the soul. It is all generated in the mind. So Lord Krishna is telling, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desires which arise from the mind, And when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, Atmani eva atmana tushtaha sthita prajñas tadvochyante. Real self is the Supreme Lord. When we are all Anu Atma, tiny souls. When we connect with the Vibho Atma, the Supreme Lord, then we get satisfaction. So one who learns this art, he is merged in transcendence. Here merge means one does not lose his individuality, as Lord Krishna explained in the previous section, that we are all eternal. Krishna existed eternally. He existed in the past. He is existing in the present. He exists in the future. We all existed in the past. We are existing in the present. We will all continue to exist in the future. So we are all individuals eternally. So when we say that we become one in transcendence or merge in transcendence, it means that we become one in our understanding, one in our purpose. Lord Krishna wants all of us to be connected with Him in love and devotion. So that is called oneness. Cooperating with the Supreme Lord's desire and trying to please Him is called oneness, but we'll all remain individuals forever. This is the true understanding. Some people think that when we become liberated, we lose our individuality and merge in that supreme transcendence. They don't have any clear idea of that supreme transcendence. So these are all actually incorrect understanding. The real understanding is God is supreme person. He is Lord Krishna. He is the supreme person. He is a special person because He is supreme. He is having unlimited potencies. He is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. He is having unlimited energies. He is the only one person in this entire existence who is special. Therefore, He is called Supreme Lord. We are all parts of Him. We are all energies of Him. And we are eternally connected to Him. Now, it is our free will to be related with Him in loving devotional service or separate ourselves from Him and suffer in this material world. That minute freedom Lord Krishna has given us. So Krishna is telling, one who gives up all desires of sense enjoyment which arise in the mind and finds satisfaction in the self alone, he is said to be fixed in transcendence. Further, Krishna describes the symptoms. Arjuna wanted to know the symptoms of a person who is thus in pure consciousness. So Krishna further describes more symptoms of such a person. So Krishna says, Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha sukheshu vigataspruhaha vitaraga bhaya krodaha stitadhir muniruchyate. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear and anger is called a sage of steady mind. So as long as we exist in this material world, there will always be suffering. So suffering because of three types, three sources. It's called tapatraya. Adhyatmika klesha, adhibhautika klesha, adhidaigika klesha. Sufferings because of one's own body and mind is called adhyatmika klesha. And you get birth, death, old age, disease, that is so painful. Throughout the life we have every individual according to his own karma suffers different types of diseases. And we have disturbances in our minds. And because the second source is adhibhautika, suffering that we receive from other living beings. We have many people, those who criticize us and they are envious of us. They try to give trouble to us in various ways. Then there are other living entities like mosquitoes, cockroaches, snakes, and wild animals. They harm us in different ways. So this is called adhibhautika klesha. And the third source of suffering is material nature itself, adhidaivika klesha. Earthquakes, famine, floods, severe heat, severe cold. So this is called tapatraya, sufferings because of three sources. So as long as we live in this material world, we get all these sufferings. And sometimes we get so-called happiness, some pleasure, bodily pleasures. So Krishna says, Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha sukheshu vigataspruhaha. One who is not disturbed in spite of threefold miseries and who is not elated when there is happiness. And then vitaraga bhaya krodaha. One who is free from attachment, fear and anger. He is called Sthitadhir Muni. He is called a sage of steady mind. A Muni is a person who utilizes his intellectual powers to understand what is the cause of everything, and every Muni has his own understanding. But a Sthitadhir Muni has perfect understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and I am part of Him, I am eternal servant of Him. My duty is to just serve Him. So he is fixed in consciousness. Whenever he gets sufferings, he feels that actually I have to suffer more, much more. Krishna is so kind that He has given me very little suffering. And whenever I get some pleasure, some happiness, he feels that I am such a fallen soul, I don't deserve any happiness. But Krishna is so great, so kind that He has given me this pleasure. So this is a symptom of a Sthitadhir Muni, one who is fixed in transcendence. Then further Krishna says, Yas sarvatra na bhisnehas tattat prapya shubha shubham nadhinandati nadveshti tasya prajna pratishthitan. He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor laments when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Yah sarvatra anabhisneha tattat prapya shubha shubham. One who is now without attachment, anabhisneha. In this material world, we love to have good friendship with different people, but Krishna says, one who is without attachment. And tattat prapya shubha shubham, one who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor laments when he obtains evil, nadhinandati nadveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. He is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Actually, body relationships are all temporary. Therefore, one should not be attached to so-called family, friends and relatives, because they are all temporary. We have to be attached to the real relationships. Real relationship is with Krishna. Krishna is eternal. Our relationship with Krishna is eternal. So in that way we have to be related. That doesn't mean that we have to neglect our family members and friends. We have to treat them in a Krishna conscious way. Treat them as parts of Krishna. Encourage them to become devotees of Krishna. Give them all facilities to become devotees. In that way one has to take care of family members and friends and relatives. That is real attachment. We have to give up false attachment that arises because of only bodily connection in forgetfulness of our connection with the Supreme Lord. Such type of attachment, Krishna says, a Sthitadhir Muni gives up. Further Krishna says, Yada samharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvashaha indriyan indriyartebhyas tasya prajna pratishthitam. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Here Krishna is explaining the symptom of Sthitadhir Muni with an example of tortoise. A tortoise, as we have observed, the tortoise has a shell and it has its limbs. It pulls out its head and limbs outside whenever it wants to walk or swim in water. When it has nothing to do and wants to protect itself, it withdraws all the limbs and head within the shell and it is safe. So in the same way, Krishna is telling, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects. By nature, this body is designed in such a way that indriyan indriyartheshu ragadvesho vyavasthito. Krishna is telling that indriyas, the senses, are always either attracted to sense objects or they reject the sense objects. Ragadvesho vyavasthito. Krishna says, Tayornavashamagachet, don't come under control of these senses. So, a Sthitadhir Muni, he doesn't come under the attraction and repulsion of sense objects. He always controls his senses, just like a tortoise keeps the limbs within when there is no use. Only when there is a purpose, it spreads out its legs, limbs outside and head outside. In the same way, a Sthitadhir Muni, a devotee of Krishna, he uses all his senses for pleasing Krishna. If he speaks to someone, he speaks about Krishna for the service of Krishna. If he sees something, he sees everything in relationship with Krishna. If he works, his work is meant for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. He sings for Krishna, he cooks for Krishna, he goes to the market to purchase for Krishna. In that way, he does all the activities only for the pleasure of Krishna. And when there is no such activity which is meant for pleasing Krishna, he withdraws his senses. So this is the symptom of a Krishna conscious person. And for his own personal enjoyment, he does not use his senses, even though it may be enjoyable. Personally, he doesn't enjoy those sense pleasures if it is not pleasing Krishna. And if something is painful, even though it is painful for him, if it is pleasing Krishna, he does it. Just like Arjuna, he had to kill his own friends and relatives. So Krishna wanted Arjuna to kill them. So Arjuna fought very vigorously. So this is the symptom of a Sthita Prajna, a person fixed in transcendence. Then Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante nirāharasya dehimaha rasavarjam rasokyasya param drishtva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So, Vishaya vinivartante nirāharasya dehimaha. As long as we have this material body, there will always be an attraction for sense pleasures. But one can conquer the senses by developing a higher taste. For example, a child may be attached to the toys, and when someone goes to take the toy of the child, immediately the child cries. When the same child, when it grows up, its attachment is no more there for the toys. Its attachment is for some other objects, maybe some cycle or something else. Now when you go and take the toy, the grown-up boy, he's not very much attached to the toy, he doesn't bother. But if you go and take his cycle, he is very much, he again cries. When the same boy, when he grows up to a young man, he is not attached to his small cycle or toys. He is now busy with something else. So as the person's consciousness develops, his taste of enjoyment also changes. So in the same way, the highest taste for the soul is to be connected with Krishna and enjoy that real spiritual enjoyment which comes by serving Krishna. So Sthita Prajna, he is able to conquer the mind and senses, the urges of the mind and senses. Especially sex attraction is so powerful that it keeps every soul bound up in this material world. So it's not so easy to conquer sexual pleasures. But if we develop bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, automatically the taste for sexual pleasure diminishes and one can easily conquer these sensual pleasures, especially the sex attraction. So this is the technique of Krishna consciousness. Only by bhakti we can overcome the demands of the senses and become truly fixed in trance. Further, Krishna says, Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashtitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manah. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So here Krishna is clearly describing how forceful and the senses are, that yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashtitaha. Even a man who is vipashtitaha, purusha, who is a man of discrimination, who is endeavoring to control them, indriyani pramathini, the senses are very impetuous, strong and impetuous, that haranti prasabham manah. Just like Vishwamitra, he went to meditate in the forest. But just by hearing the ankle bells of Menaka, his whole meditation broke and he fell for sexual attraction with Menaka. So we can see that senses are very strong. But on the other hand, there was Haridas Thakur, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, who would always chant Hare Krishna mantra throughout the day. Maya Devi herself went to him. He was sitting in a cave and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. She was very beautiful, and at the mid of night she went, and Haridas Thakur, he was a young man, so she went and proposed for sexual enjoyment. Haridas Thakur was not at all disturbed. He said, "Don't worry, let me finish my chanting, you sit down." So that Maya Devi was wait for an entire night. Haridas Thakur went on chanting. Hearing Haridas Thakura's chanting, her heart changed and she wanted to accept Haridas Thakur as Guru, and she took Harinam Diksha from Haridas Thakura. So this is the difference between an ordinary person and a Sthitadhir Muni. A Sthitadhir Muni, because he is connected with the Supreme, he is enjoying real spiritual taste by connecting with Krishna. He is not attracted to bodily pleasure because he knows I am not the body, I am spirit soul. This is the first lesson of spiritual life. So when I am not the body, what is the need of being attached to bodily pleasures? Let me enjoy real pleasure with Krishna. So a person who is connected with Krishna, he has no more attraction to pale material things. He is not attracted to any sensual pleasures, including sex life. So real spiritual life means overcoming all sensual desires and tasting real taste that comes, real pleasure that comes by serving Krishna. That is real spiritual life. That Krishna says, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta sita matparaha vashe indriyani tasya prajna pratishthitan. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta sita matparaha. Clearly we can see how Krishna is describing Bhakti Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me. So clearly Krishna is telling that he is Supreme Lord and it's the duty of everyone to fix his mind and consciousness upon him. Vashehi asya, one has to control the senses because senses are like mad snakes. Anytime a snake will bite. In the same way, senses are so mad after sense objects. Whenever this object comes, immediately it wants to capture. But by performing devotion to Krishna, one gets that strength to withstand the ever-disturbing senses and engage them happily in Krishna's service. Further, Krishna says how a person becomes entangled in this material world. Krishna is now describing. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammoha smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. From anger, delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So here Krishna is clearly describing that Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment. Once we go on thinking of certain type of sense or object, we develop attachment. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate. And from such attachment, lust develops. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. And then Kamat Krodho Vijayate. When we indulge in sense enjoyment, actually it doesn't satisfy the soul because body is different, soul is different. How much ever we enjoy bodily pleasure, soul will not be happy. So out of frustration, there is anger. And because of anger, Krodhat Bhavati Sammohaha. From anger, delusion arises. And Sammoha Smriti Vipramaha. Because of delusion, bewilderment of memory. Smriti Pramshat Buddhinasho. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And Buddhinashat Pranashyati. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So we can see the root cause of everything is association, attachment to sense enjoyment. So we all need to be attached, we all need Sangha. So we should learn to take sadhu Sangha, associate with devotees. By associating with devotees, we will get pure knowledge. Our intelligence will be purified. Sadhus will give us true transcendental knowledge that will keep our intelligence always pure. By intelligence, mind is controlled. By controlled mind, senses are controlled. So to control the mind, we should know what is right and what is wrong. To know what is right and what is wrong, we need knowledge. And that knowledge comes from sadhus and scriptures. So we have to associate with sadhus, devotees of Krishna, read Bhagavad Gita. In that way, we will always have pure intelligence which will direct us straight on the path of Krishna consciousness. And once we know what is right and what is wrong, even though the mind and senses generate desires for enjoying, because we know something is wrong, we will be able to control the mind and senses. So without having pure intelligence, we cannot make any spiritual advancement. Therefore, regularly we have to read Bhagavad Gita, regularly we have to hear from devotees about Krishna Bhakti, philosophy of Krishna consciousness, so that our intelligence will always remain pure. Otherwise, by impure consciousness, impure intelligence, mind and senses will go astray and we will fall down into this material pool. We will keep wandering in this material world in different species in search for happiness. And in every species, bodily pleasures will never satisfy the soul. Only in human form of life we have a golden opportunity to get liberated from this material body and enjoy real pleasure. We all belong to Krishna and it's our birthright to be happy always with Krishna. So why not we return back to Krishna and enjoy? So therefore we have to be very careful and use this human form of life very, very cautiously for advancing in Krishna consciousness. And then further Krishna says, Raga dvesha vimuktayestu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavasher vidheyatma prasadam madhigacchati. One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. So by practicing control of senses and by practicing the regulated principles of freedom, there are many sinful activities. Among all sinful activities, there are 4 sinful activities one has to refrain from: meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit connection with women. So one has to give up these 4 sinful activities, and then one has to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One has to chant this mantra regularly on beats. So by practicing do's and don'ts, one can fix his consciousness on Krishna, and in that way one can receive the mercy of Krishna. Without mercy of Krishna, we cannot advance. So to receive the mercy of Krishna, we need mercy of Guru. So our Guru is Srila Prabhupada. He has told us, follow the 4 regulative principles: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. And he has told, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on beats, 16 rounds per day. So those who are beginners, you may start chanting 1 or 2 rounds on the mala and gradually increase your number of rounds to 16 rounds per day. Before chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we have to chant the Panchatattva mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. This mantra has to be chanted once, and then we have to chant Hare Krishna mantra on beats 108 times. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama. We have to hear carefully with attention. Every word we chant, we have to attentively hear. In that way, our heart will become purified, and the Hare Krishna mantra is incarnation of Krishna himself. There is no difference between the mantra and Krishna. We will get all benefits that we receive by meeting Krishna just by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is the practical way of purifying ourselves in this age of Kali Yuga. So in that way we will receive mercy of Krishna. Then further Krishna says, Nasti buddhira yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata ashantir ashantasya kutasukam. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So those who don't know about the real philosophy of life, that we are all parts of Krishna, our duty is to please Krishna, their mind and senses are all scattered here and there in search of sense pleasures. So always they are disturbed in the mind. There is no peace of mind. So, Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantir ashantasya kutasukam. When mind is so disturbed, where is question of Sukha, where is question of happiness? And mind itself is disturbed, there is no happiness at all. So happiness belongs only to a devotee, because a devotee is not disturbed in Sukha. Both Sukha and Dukkha is not disturbed, is fixed in transcendence. Only a devotee enjoys pleasure always, because he is fixed in his mind. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam nivambhasi. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So with an example, Krishna is telling, Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanono vidhiyate. If we focus our attention on even one sensual enjoyment, it carries away a man's intellect. Just like Adasya Harati Prajnam Vayurnavam Imambhasi, just like a boat, it is swept away by strong wind. So in the same way, if we divert our attention from pleasing Krishna even for a moment, then our mind carries away our attention on sensual pleasures, and then we get lost in this material world. So Krishna is telling, therefore, Tasmadyasya mahabhao nigrahitani sarvashaha indriyani indriyabhyas tasya prajna pratishthitan. Therefore, O mighty one, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. So you can see yoga indriya samyama. Yoga means to control the senses. Now, yes, senses are meant for engaging. Senses cannot be kept quiet. We cannot keep quiet. Nahi kashchit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarma krit karyate hi avashaha karma sarva prakriti jairgunai. Krishna says in the next chapter that one cannot sit quiet even for a moment. Everyone acts according to one's own acquired nature. So how can we sit quietly? So the answer is, we have to learn from Guru how according to our own natures we can engage our senses in pleasing Krishna. Without direction of Guru, we cannot advance in spiritual life. So controlling the senses means not sitting quietly and closing the eyes and meditating on void. That's all not possible. The only practical method is approach a bona fide spiritual master, approach a guru, learn from him the techniques of engaging in Krishna Bhakti. So just like Srila Prabhupada, he is our guru. He has guided the entire humanity. He has told, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. And that according to one's own ability, we have to work and offer the result to please Guru and Krishna. In this way, we can control the senses and the mind. Otherwise, it's not possible. Then Krishna says, Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So here Krishna is comparing between a materialist and a spiritualist. A materialist, one who is ignorant about the self, about the aim of life, he is busy in sensual enjoyment. He is working hard day and night, earning money, so that he can gather all the objects of senses for sense enjoyment. But for introspective sage, a person who is awake in spiritual consciousness, he is not busy working hard for achieving money and sense pleasure, sense objects. He is busy in taking association of devotees, taking orders of Guru and trying to please Guru, trying to serve Krishna. So what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for a self-realized. A self-realized soul, he rises early in the morning, takes bath, attends Mangalarti. So a materialist is sleeping early in the morning, but an introspective sage, he is busy performing spiritual activities. And what is time of awakening for all beings is night for introspective stage. Those are busy in materialistic activities, that means they are all awake in those materialistic activities. A devotee is not at all busy in such activities. So this is a comparison between activities of a materialist and activities of a spiritualist. And further Krishna says, Apuryamanam machala pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti advat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Just like in an ocean, many rivers enter the ocean and merge. So that means rivers are continuously flowing into the ocean, but still we see that ocean is steady, it doesn't agitate. In the same way, a person who is not disturbed by incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers, as long as we live in this material world, our material mind keeps generating various types of desires for sensual pleasure. But because of pure knowledge, because of pure intelligence, even though there are many desires that arise in the mind, because of that spiritual strength, by practicing bhakti yoga and pure knowledge, one is able to control the urges of the mind and senses. Otherwise, it's not possible. Without spiritual strength, one cannot overcome the urges of the mind and senses. So, a devotee, because of mercy which he receives from Guru and Krishna, because of devotional service, he can overcome the urges of the mind and senses. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. One receives the mercy of Krishna by receiving the mercy of Guru. By following the Guru's orders, one can please Krishna. By pleasing Krishna, we get that mercy, we get that bala, spiritual strength to overcome the strong effects of material energy. The modes of passion and ignorance, they are so powerful that it governs our knowledge and attracts us for sensual pleasures, attracts us for sinful activities. So one can easily overcome these urges by the strength of bhakti, and that comes by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in this age of Kali Yuga. So chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is very, very important. So I request all of you to daily chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Then further Krishna says, Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumamshcharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashanti madhigacchati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So vihaya kamanya sarvan. As a living being, we all have desires. We cannot be without desires. But we have to purify our desires. Instead of desiring for one's own personal sense enjoyment, we have to desire to please Krishna. Understand what Krishna wants from a Guru and satisfy Krishna as Guru has directed. In this way, we can purify our desires. Our desires should be, how can I please Krishna? In that way, we will get real peace, real happiness. So, nirmamo nirahankara sashanti madhigacchati. Our real ego is an eternal servant of Krishna. We have to give up false ego. I am Indian, I am American, I am Hindu, I am Muslim. These are all false egos. Real ego is I am eternal servant of Krishna. My desire is to please Krishna. By being situated in this real ego, we get real peace of mind. So, Krishna concludes by telling, Yesham brahmi sthiti partha nainam prapya vimuhyati stitva syamanta kalepi brahma nirvanam richati. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So very clearly Krishna has described the symptoms of a person fixed in transcendence, a person who is a pure devotee of Krishna. A pure devotee of Krishna focuses his attention only to please Krishna. He is not interested in satisfying his own personal sensual pleasures, and he conquers, he keeps the mind and senses always in control because of the mercy he gets, because of the spiritual strength he gets by performing devotion to Krishna. And he performs devotion to Krishna in accordance with the directions given by the spiritual master. So unless we have a guru, we cannot advance in bhakti. So we all have to accept a true spiritual master. As I told, Srila Prabhupada is the Jagat Guru. He gives us all practical guidance, knowledge and application of knowledge, how to advance in Krishna Bhakti. So by the mercy of Guru and mercy of Krishna, one gets that strength to keep the mind and intelligence and senses in control and fixed in Krishna Bhakti. In this way, as long as we live, we will be very happy, very peaceful, and at the hour of death also we can fix our mind, our full attention on Krishna, and return back to the kingdom of God. So, very nicely Krishna has described the contents of the Gita summarized. This second chapter, Krishna has touched upon various aspects very briefly. So we will see next what happens in the next chapter. That is the chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.